Keith Tebow from FRCmedia. Thank you for joining us today. It's been a little while since we've caught up with the Chief of Police in the city of Fall River, Chief Jeffrey Cardoza. I'm pleased to be joined by the Chief right now. Chief, how are you today?
I'm well. Thank you for having me, Keith. It's good to be back.
Yeah, thanks. A lot of things we want to catch up on to, a lot of just updating the community about what's going on in the police department. I think the last time we spoke was probably earlier in the spring, um, and talking about the levels of crime in the city. There's always a lot of talk in Fall River about, oh, crime is an issue in Fall River. Crime, I guess, is an issue in any community. But in terms of the raw numbers, which you provided some to me this morning, also other crime statistics from the mid-year report, which is available on the police department's website, crime is only up overall a little less than 2%. Talk about how things have worked out in the city thus far this year in terms of crime overall, and maybe some of the particular categories.
Sure, absolutely. You're right, Keith, that crime is overall, adding everything together, is up just under 2%. But there's a category that we're very concerned about. We talk about very often. I talk about it with my command staff. I talk about it around the community, and that's the aggravated assaults academy. That category, excuse me. That category involves our shootings. We have 32 shootings so far this year, and we had 20 all of last year. So the shootings has had a significant impact, on our crime rate. Many other categories are down. The only other categories that are slightly up would be burglary and larceny. So all serious stuff, all stuff that we're looking into, and all stuff that we talk about. And I got my fingers crossed that we don't have any more shootings this year.
Yeah, I mean, what's being done on that matter? Obviously, it could be related to some gang activity. We did have one murder where two people were killed earlier this spring. What can you attribute to the increase in gun violence and shootings?
Well, I hate to sound like a broken record, but we're seeing it all over the place. I mean,
Yeah.
I certainly wouldn't want to be my counterpart in Providence right now. I think they're up to 19 homicides, and they're having a couple of shootings every weekend. So it's coming out of hate to bring it up again, but coming out of COVID, it just seems to be something that's going on nationally, especially in the urban areas such as Fall River. And a lot of our shootings, they're not necessarily people being hit all the time. Some of the shots fired of those 32 involve people shooting into an empty car or people shooting in the air. Still very serious, and we treat those cases just like we treat the ones where people are actually struck by gunfire. One of the biggest frustrations, Keith, is the lack of cooperation. It's unlike I've ever seen, and the detectives have ever seen, and the officers have ever seen it. Right from the get-go, people that have sustained gunshot wounds or been even a victim of a violent crime just have this attitude of they're just not going to cooperate with the police, and they'll tell you, they'll look at you and say, I know who shot me, or I know who did rob me, but I'm just not going to provide that information.
Is that out of fear of retaliation by those parties? I mean, that sounds like the logical answer to that question.
I think that that's part of it, but I think it is an overall disdain, if you will, or lack of respect for the police and the community and the safety of the community.
And why do you think that is? I mean, we talked about this last year, following the George Floyd incident, how police were, not looked upon favorably based on those incidents in other parts of the country. We talked about here in Fall River, the communication between the police and the community it has been relatively very strong. So, I mean, how can you, attest to that attitude of people, maybe not having trust in the city police or not willing to speak to them?
Well, there's a lot of things we're doing, Keith, to try to break down those barriers. I could point to some significant success up in the Corky Row, the neighborhood. After that tragic event, we've had a significant presence up there. But one of the things I said at the meetings there, and people have really taken it to another level. I said, we can't do this alone. We need your help. The police can't be the fixers for everything. You need to get involved. You need to call us. You need to let us know what's going on, even if it's anonymously. And you need to hold people, your neighbors and your neighborhood, if you will, accountable as well. It can't just be the police that do it all the time. So we're having some success. There's a lot of things that we're doing with recruitment. There's a lot of things that we're doing. I'm looking forward to. We're hiring some cadets, some police cadets. We're finally at that point where we're getting ready to bring them in for some interviews. So there's a lot of different things that we're going to do. Get out in the community, get out of the car, interact. There's some Halloween stuff we're doing to break down those barriers. I just went to one of the schools recently and read to the kids. Those are the kind of things that they're invaluable when you add them all up.
Yeah. How much of it as well is, the need to physically have the police presence in the community? We talked about in the past walking beats, and you do have you know the uh, the 12 cars out there on a shift, so there's more visibility. How much of it is just visibility, people seeing police in the neighborhoods that they can talk to if they happen to be walking around,
Yeah,
and how much of that is happening, or is more of that happening where police may be driving in a neighborhood, but they'll stop and walk out and interact with people?
yeah, it's great to have a car driving through a neighborhood, but that's not going to do it, Keith. You got to get out from behind that barrier, that door, and interact with some folks. And I've been fortunate where the mayor has been able to provide me a significant amount of funding for walking beats. And we have what's called a special operations division, which those officers are just dedicated to doing these kind of things, the bicycle patrols, the walking beats, the neighborhood meetings, and addressing the specific concerns of the neighborhood. Every neighborhood's different, and every neighborhood's concerns or worries or issues are different. So we've had some officers out there. I think Corky Row has just been a great example of the relationships have gone to just a whole nother level. We're trying some of that up in the Flint area, and there's other areas that as well, the East Main Street area as well, that we're trying to address. But those interactions at the meetings, those interactions at soft events, if you will, are hugely important. And Kennedy Park, the event that they had recently at Kennedy Park, with Alicia Powell and Asia Grace and the diversity committee, that's huge.
Yeah. And I know, there's also, our neighborhood groups are having their community meetings again in person. Again, that's another opportunity. I know you always have a sergeant there to talk about what's happening in those neighborhoods. And that's another way to build those connections, correct, within those meetings.
It does. And another thing, we have to be genuine at the meeting. I mean, I go to as many as I can myself. And it's funny, I had somebody recently say to me, that's all the arrests, because we go over the arrests for the month that you've made in the neighborhood. And we talk about manpower, if you will, and we talk about the fact that we're trying to play catch up, get to our budgeted amount of officers, and that's been probably my biggest struggle, in the last year or so, is just trying to get us up to where our accounted for complement.
Yeah. And again, I always ask you this, and I always forget the number. What is the number? Is it 235? Is that the number you're looking to get to?
Yes, yeah, exactly, Keith. You got a good memory. That's if you count the superior officers. But the number that I'm always chasing is the 181. We're budgeted for 181 patrol officers, and that's where I want to be. We had 11 just graduate recently. They're in our field training program. We're excited about that. We just hired 5 more. And we put them in the academy. I think they're in week 2 or 3 of the academy. And the mayor, thank you, Mayor. I just got permission to hire 11 more. So we're just called for 11 more names from the civil service list, and we're vetting them as we speak. So once we get, these 30 or so up and running, we're going to be real close to that number.
How is the morale of the rank and file of the police department? Obviously, not only the instances that they need to attend to here in a city like Fall River, but on top of that, what you just said earlier about people not having a lot of trust in the police department. Does it weigh on officers, and how are they dealing with it?
It does. The morale's not the best right now. I'm going to be completely honest with you. I think not only what law enforcement agencies have gone through and what officers have to deal with on the street, but here in Fall River, because our complement has been down, because we've had difficulty filling academy spots, we're ordering officers into work on their days off, and this occurs almost on a daily basis in the uniform division, and I'm so proud of the men and women down there, because they work so hard, and it's not uncommon for officers to be ordered, miss their days off and go into a whole nother work week. So you got families, you got children. It's unlike I've ever seen it. People being ordered in. So I know that's had an impact on morale. So that's why I say it's so important for me to get these academy classes in, to get these folks trained up and get them on the street helping everyone out.
Is there support? What kind of support is there for officers who maybe, feeling a little burned out, and, trying to deal with these types of concerns?
Yeah. So we have an EAP program. It's an excellent program that's run out of Family Services, and I know there's a lot of involvement in that. And then when there's a significant incident, the command staff lets me know, and I'll actually order officers to go to the EAP program, because I just think it's a good idea. That's been going on, even prior to my tenure. But we also have our galas coming up. That's where we recognize officers for doing exceptional service. So that's on Halloween Day at Whites of Westport. So we're looking forward to that. So yeah, we try to keep an eye on them, and it's not uncommon for supervisors to sit down with an officer and talk about things.
I know when we spoke last year in the throes of COVID, and in the follow-up to the George Floyd incident, you had made a concerted effort to, again, reach out into the community to provide that communication with diversity, not only within the department, but speaking to members of the diversity committee, and those within the community. How has that been fostered over the past year in terms of reaching out to those parts of our segments of our community?
I think good, Keith. Bobby Bailey, Amber Burns, Elena Pavid, Asia Grace. These are people that I'm talking to pretty consistently, if not meeting with them. In fact, I have a meeting today with some of those folks later at City Hall. I know there's going to be an event at Halloween Day. The day before Halloween at that they're throwing at Days Beach for the kids. So there's a good rapport and a good relationship. I have an officer, Sergeant Mendes, who's embedded into the diversity committee. So I think the communication's excellent.
All right, so Chief, one of the things, obviously this has not been the best of years for the department in terms of making news. There were a couple of incidents earlier this year concerning the mishandling of evidence. Those investigations have gone forward. We've talked about that in the past. Have there been any other protocols in place to make sure that this type of, I guess, the tightening of the regulations in terms of, reporting and handling evidence, have there been any added protocols in place to make sure that these incidents don't happen again?
Yes, they have. I made some moves, some transfers. I won't get into who, what, where, and why. I just don't think that's appropriate. But there are different people that are in charge of the vice unit right now, and there are some different people working in there. And I've made it crystal clear that I want things done exactly the way they're supposed to be done, and I know that's happening. In fact, where the mayor and I have had a discussion about actually considering having someone come in and look at our procedures. We're in the discussion phase, maybe with an independent assessment team, if you will, to come in and look at the vice unit and make sure that we're doing it right. So it's unfortunate that those things happened, and I don't want to complain. There's some things that I inherited that I'm trying to fix, and that's going to take time. But part of the transparency is putting it out there and saying, this is what happened, and this is what's been going on, and we're gonna fix it.
As we move ahead toward the end of another year, I guess, what are some of the goals on your plate in terms of moving forward? I know you mentioned a lot of them about, getting some of those recruits in and getting those patrol numbers up. But is there anything else that you'd like to see? Any other initiatives that may be important for the community to know that's going to be happening at the police department?
Really, I'm just focusing on again the recruitment and getting the numbers up, and then I think we can do some different things and be a little bit more efficient and effective. I'd like to take our community policing efforts to another level, but I really need to get the complement up before we can before we can go there. So I'm just kind of keeping it simple with the numbers. I'm very concerned about burnout, so it's something that I want to address.
And let me just ask you finally, as much as police departments across the country are facing some scrutiny, and hearing some things that, are not always popular, I'm sure you're also hearing from a number of people in the community that appreciate the work that the department does in Fall River, and appreciates the fact that we have a strong department with restrictions, of course, that are there to serve the community, right?
Yeah, the Blue Mass with Father
Yeah.
Jay. I had so many people, Keith, come up to me and talk about how proud they are and how happy they are, and tell me different stories about different officers that were doing things. I get emails and I get calls like that at least 2 or 3 times a week. So there's so many good things that go on. There's so many great things that go on that we try to promote them. Some officers don't want us to promote the good things that they do on the Facebook page. They're just really humble and they just want to keep it to themselves. So I'm proud to be here and be part of this agency, and I know that there are going to be more speed bumps coming up, where it's going to not necessarily look positive for our organization, but this is part of what we have to do. We as an organization have to address the wrongs, and we're going to do that, and we're going to keep moving forward.
Chief Jeffrey Cardoza, I appreciate your time being transparent with us, and I'm glad we're able to share this time with the community, and I look forward to catching up again with you soon. Hopefully I'll see you, but if not, have a great fall and winter season, and all the best. I appreciate your time.
Thank you for having me, Keith. Take care.
All right, thank you. And thank you for joining us here on FRC Media. I'm Keith Tebow. Have a great rest of your day.